All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is going to do a comparison between this year's 17U Gold team, which is the more efficient of the two, and want to compare them to a team that I've heard you guys talking about quite a bit, and that's the Crown 2019 team with TJ and Six Smith and all them. And I hear you guys talking about them, and when I try to bring up that these guys are probably just as efficient as they are, everybody rolls their eyes at me. These guys, I don't care what numbers say, these guys are 40 points better, whatever it is. So listen, you guys cancel practice tonight for the 17. So unfortunately for you, I have a little more time to dedicate at least my brain to this project. So what I decided to do was do a comparison between these two teams and figure out why this other team, these old, from 19 is better if they are even, and what could be improved about this team. And just so you guys know what I was able to do, I had these downloads available from Be the Beast or Baller TV, and I was able to actually download all of the Crown games from 2019. I kept them in a separate kind of coaching file for me. I'm the only one that can see this, and I download the individuals and everything like that. And I got 9 games total so far. This is from the Summer Jam Fest, the Spring Jam Fest, all the good tournaments. And I'm going to continue to download their whole season just so that I can eventually compare one season to another, just for fun, right? And forget that's just for fun. I think that when I show you some things here, I think it'll help you direct this team from this season in maybe a better path, but we'll see. So what I have is 9 games so far from that team, which is okay. I mean, and the team this year, we have 14 games, so it's not exactly apples to apples, but it's the same level of competition pretty much. And I want to compare the two. First of all, I want you to notice, and I'm going back and forth between these two teams. So from an effective field goal percentage, you have this year's team, the gold team, with a 54% effective field goal percentage. Compared to that team from 2019, theirs are 53.5%. So from an effective field goal percentage, both teams are pretty much exactly the same. I mean, you can even argue that this year is actually a little bit more efficient. And actually, when you break it down, I mean, you look at even the 3-point percentage. This year is 36.9%. And that season, or at least for these 10 games, whatever, was 36.5. So pretty much dead even. So you have an effective field goal percentage of exactly the same. And the 3-point percentage was pretty damn close. Let's look at some of these others. 2-point percentage this season, 53%. 2019, you guys were 52%, so pretty much the same. So my question then, which really needs an answer, is how come that team averaged 71 points a game, while this year, guys are only averaging 66? Like, why is that team 5 points, more productive? Why do they score 5 more points if the effective field goal percentage is pretty much the same? And look, listen, it's a project, and I already think I knew the answer, but it's really worth getting into because you can make an interesting coaching decision based off of this if you wanted to. So when I was looking at this, the first thing I noticed is, well, let's look at turnover rate for a second. So this season, you guys have a turnover rate of 15.7%, where back then it was 12.8%. That's actually not that big of a deal. An extra 2-3% turnover rate doesn't really translate to that much. But the other thing I noticed, and this is actually a really big deal, is that back then, you guys had an offensive rebound percentage of almost 40%, 39.9, whereas this year, your offensive rebound percentage is only 26%. Now, what that means is that only 26% of the time where you have a chance to get an offensive rebound, you get it. So what that translates to is team over team is just getting just so many more shots, and that is what leads and what led to those extra points. Very simply, like if you think about it logically, if these teams are going to shoot just as well from the field, and one team is scoring more points, got to come from somewhere, probably from more shots, right? Or maybe more free throws, but we'll get to that in a second. So that's the big deal, is that the offensive rebound percentage from that team is just so much greater. And that's one thing I highlighted in the previous videos, is that a 26% offensive rebound percentage is just not going to be good enough. I mean, you got to have at least 30 to be competitive in these games. In the tougher games. So we're going to get drill down and see where that comes from in a minute. And I think for those of you who are around for both teams, you kind of know where I'm getting at. But let's then, before we do that, let's look at the free throws. So like this year, you guys are only getting a line 12.7% of 12.7 times per game. So you're like 9 out of 12, 9 out of 13 per game, where in 2019, it was 15 free throws a game. So you were 10 out of 15. So that is, that's an extra 3 shots, right? Extra 3 free throws. So that adds up a little bit too. So between the extra offensive rebounds, which leads to more shots, and remember, offensive rebounds leads to what kind of shots? Like good shots, right? You get the offensive rebound, you probably put it right back in. And that between the free throws, that's really the difference between these. I mean, when you compare them individually, they're really the same. I mean, I'll give you an example. Let's look at the 3-point percentages, right? So as I mentioned, it was 36% both of them. Let's look at the individuals. Let's go back, let's go back up down memory lane and look at the individuals from that team and see how they did for 3 points. Now, from 3. Now, obviously, well, some of them we didn't get, but obviously, as you remember, I mean, look, Sixsmith and TJ were both really, really strong. You had Sixsmith with 42%, TJ with 39%. Even Trey was okay. He didn't shoot that many of them though, but he was 37%. But the 2 main shooters were Sixsmith and TJ, and they were right around 40%, which is probably how you remember it. You know what I mean? But remember, that's no better than these dudes from this year. The 2 main shooters from this team this year, Ryan and Roddy, they're even higher. I mean, Roddy's at 44%, Ryan's at 41%. Now you could argue that maybe this regresses a little bit, but listen, this is all I'm seeing. And you got both these guys at over 40%. So the nature of these teams is very similar, right? You have 2 sharpshooters that are shooting over 40%, just like TJ and Sixsmith are. The only real difference really between the teams are the extra free throws and the offensive rebounds. And you see that kind of goes hand in hand, right? Because the more offensive rebounds you get, the more shots you can make, the easier shots you can make, the more often you get fouled. And, and this is the unfortunate reality here. Like, let's go back and see why that is. Now, again, those of you that actually remember these kids, you'll probably know it by heart, what I'm going to say. But if you look at these guys by rebounding, like per game, forget the unknowns, you had Sean, who is literally averaging 4 offensive rebounds per game, which is pretty absurd, actually at this level. For a guy that averaged 4 offensive rebounds per game, especially in your system, right? 4 offensive rebounds per game is just a ton. And that's really, really big. And even you look at actual rebounds overall, you got him averaging 8 and then Jarrell averaging 6. And you compare that to this year's team, and you look at it by, well, let's first sort by offensive rebound. There's nobody averaging anything. Makai at 1.3 offensive rebounds per game. That's either you have no presence there attacking the offensive glass. And then even if you look at regular rebounds in general, you have nobody averaging over 5 a game, so that in and of itself is literally the only reason why you guys average 5 points less than the other team did. But the thing is that what can you do, right? What can you do to change that? You might think that, well, what can I do? I don't have a Sean this year. I don't have a guy that's going to dominate the glass like he did. I mean, look, there's a couple of things you could do. I mean, you could just, well, first of all, you could motivate them. We say, Makai, you got to crash the glass. CJ, Mendes, but you could even scheme it a little bit. Like, you could just say, listen, I want 3 guys crashing the boards on the offensive glass literally every shot, and you could make that part of your scheme and make that part of your offense and just continue to drill that when you're in practice and make sure that these guys, even though they're running a, very motion oriented offense with a lot of people moving and whatever, you still can tell them that, like, when one guy shoots, that weak side crashes, right? And maybe even something just as simple as that could just, look, I don't know if we're ever going to replace all those offensive rebounds, but if you can get a couple of them, I think it would help. I guess that's all I really wanted to say. Again, these are the puzzles I kind of like to solve. And I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm not saying that you guys have to make one team like another one. right? But I'm just saying that there are ways to use these observations, these numbers to your advantage. And wouldn't it be fun if you did make just 1 or 2 changes, increase your offensive rebound percentage, and that was the reason why you ended up turning these kind of okay performances into big wins? It's possible, because I'm telling you, you do have the offensive efficiency to do it. That was pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys get something from it, and that'll do it.